I'm Gwen Preston of Resource Maven. We're here at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver in January, and I'm joined by Matt Wilson of Sterling Metals. Thanks for being here.
Hey Gwen, thanks for having me.
So Sterling, I mean, you guys have the Sail Pond project in Newfoundland. You've now had, you call it 2 seasons. It's sort of a season and a half of being able to drill up there to figure out what's going on. And what I was watching for, what I'm still watching for, is you were attacking the Heimdall zone, which is your discovery, and it's a legitimate silver discovery, to be sure. And you were attacking that for 2 reasons: to see what it is, and also to see what you can learn from that might help you find more Heimdalls, or whatever you call them, on the rest of the property. And that's sort of underway. But can we start there? Can you tell me what you've learned at Heimdall this year, or so far?
Yeah, I think that the way you put it with the drill season and a half was a good way to put it, because the first half of our drill program last year was fencing for 12 kilometers. We couldn't even get there because of COVID, and so
right, yeah, exactly.
So the drilling at Heimdall, I mean, it's a very big area. It's 400 meters by 200 meters by 150 meters. Like, that's a big blob of metal in the ground.
Yes.
And so we went at it this year, trying to do 2 things. One, trying to figure out where the high grade veins were going. Mm-hmm. And then the second one was just kind of to extend the trends. And what we ended up learning is that going under the veins, because we didn't have any orientation last year, so going under the veins, treating it kind of like an Abitibi, like very hard rock system, does not work.
Okay.
And what we thought was the control for the mineralization, this argillite cap, mm-hmm. was really just you see this stress in the rocks, which is good because that's what everything breaks and the fluid comes through. But our learning this year was basically that straight down, argillite kind of creates this staircase underneath Heimdall. And so you can't just go straight down. And then that took, 7 holes to figure that out. But we then found where the trends were going and which way it went. So now when we talk about the actual direction of the trend within Heimdall, this high grade kind of corridor, which I think is what I care about. I care about the high grades. Like, there's the bulk tonnage model. I know it comes to surface, but really you're looking for these really rich high-grade pods that, as you said, could be found again and again. And, mm-hmm. The Loki and the Thor, we'll call it whatever we want. Zones. So we're really confident in the trend direction now.
Okay.
In Heimdall, which took us this additional season of drilling.
And let's talk about trend direction. Then you took a 400, 500 meter step out to, is it a new zone? Is it a continuation of the zone? We are yet to know the answer to that. But there was some geology there that was distinctive and exciting. Yeah,
first shout out to the boots on the ground geology of we had our guys out there just going through the rocks and figuring it out, and that's how that was discovered. Really old-fashioned kind of work.
Perfect.
But what was so significant about that area, and actually we stopped drilling it because we had to see what the grades were, is that the mineralization changed.
Right.
So we have these 2 kinds of mineralization in Heimdall. We have these quartz veins that carry very high grade sulfides. Sure. And then we have kind of this forced brecciated dolostone where there's little bits of lead, silver, and zinc and stuff in the country rock. This we found like 100% metal replacing the dolostone. And so that's when that's in hole 64 where it's small, it's, third of a meter or whatever it is, but it's 1,600 grams silver and over 8% copper and 13% lead. And so the tenor of the sulfides, like what the composition of that sulfide is, shifted.
Yes.
And that means that you're somewhere very exciting, because that strength of system to break through the country rock like that is a big deal. And so now you have these 3 styles of mineralization that kind of overprint each other. And Steve Piercy, our PhD advisor from Memorial, was explaining that the multiple styles of mineralization, these different pulses that have come up, is really good for what you're trying to find, this pod, because it's going to be a very rich system, because metals tend to attract. And so if you have, so when we see stuff like that, the strength of the system, the multiple pulses of mineralization, it gets really exciting.
So remind me, there are results still pending from last season?
There are still results pending. The labs have been fun.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, a little frustrating. It's hard too, because you'll get a partial on a hole.
Right, and what are you going to do with a partial?
And you can't do anything. And then the high grade is what really gets delayed, because they have to check it and check it and check it. So you get these low grade results, and you're like, well, that's not very good. But then you're like, oh, but we're missing the high grade portions of them. So that was what happened this whole year, and that's what's still happening right now for the rest of it. So the rest of the drilling, I think it's 13 or 14 holes, where we went a little bit more wildcat, tried to follow up on some surface anomalies and things like that. So those will come back soon, I think. Like, they're supposed to, you talk to the lab, they're supposed to be back any day now.
Okay. And then going forward, I'm sure this new zone, the 500-meter step out, obviously you're going to go at that because, like you say, you're close to something exciting or you're into something exciting. It's a bit of a repeat of that concept from last year of fingerprinting, figuring out what the structures and rock types are telling you about how to find the goods. Yeah,
I was envious of some of the stories today in the panel that they're like, there's 100 years of mining, and there's adits
and data
and all this data, and that's amazing to help you go forward. This is all from scratch. This is the first time, right? Which is hard, but of course the pro is no metal has ever been taken out of the ground. So if we figure this out, it's there. What we're doing right now, though, is we're cutting lines to do a Titan geophysical survey. And the reason we're doing that is because we're going to map the mineralized structures basically down to about 2 kilometers deep. Yeah. And these are old, hot rocks. The idea of that is that the mineralized structure comes up from the bottom. You know now the trend from the top.
Right.
And then eventually they're going to meet.
Yes.
And then that's your drill target. So rather than kind of like one at a time drilling down, it's like let's look at this in a bit grander of a context.
Gotcha.
And that should help us very much with both the Heimdall zone and the new zone to the north.
Exciting times. You must be looking forward to this next drill season.
I really am. We have a full-time team now. Everyone's on, Jeremy, our new head of exploration. He's great. Yeah. Track record of grading some pretty big value for people. So fantastic. It should be a pretty fun drill season this year.
Well, I look forward to keeping up with the news. Thanks for being here.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.